Hey guys, I'm Ines. I write kissing books, and this is chapter one of the Valkyries' claim. Oh, yes, yes, Big Daddy. You're the best I've ever had. Reagan took a sip of her soda pop. The fizzy drink tickled her nose, causing her to wiggle it, much like the woman's torso was doing at the moment. Reagan slunk back in the shadows of the window, not wanting to detract from the woman's performance. Because it was a performance. Reagan knew a lie when she heard one. You're so big, Big Daddy. You're going to split me right open. That wasn't likely. Big Daddy was better known as Joey, the whale Amato, because he made men swim with the fishes. Joey was as big as a whale. His cheeks were fat and made his head look like an overinflated balloon. His belly was so round, both on the sides and in the front, that the flesh fell over his waistline. Unfortunately, the whale wasn't big in all the right places. Reagan had caught sight of his member before it disappeared inside the bouncing lyre. The only thing that little extension would split would have been her gut with laughter. Reagan took another swig of her fizzy drink. Cola was the best part of visiting this side of the veil. It was a sort of sweet ale that had none of the side effects of lethargy or stupidness, though not much affected her as one of the daughters of the goddess. Yet somehow the fizzy drink put a pep in her step. Reagan was lounging while she waited for this little act to finish. She'd parked her ride outside the window of her prey while she knocked back her first cold one. Once this party was over, Big Daddy Whale was on his way to hell for his crimes against humanity. Mother didn't mind a few bad deeds now and then, but she drew the line at serial murders. That was the realm of the gods with plagues and floods and dysentery. Joey had taken out enough of Mother's pets to equal a small town. It was time for his comeuppance. However, Reagan was being polite, using the manners neither of her parents taught her, and letting the whale blow his load one more time before eternal damnation. She was cool like that. She knew the sexual act could take a while, and she had a whole other bottle of soda to get to, so she. Oh, 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 groaned the whale. Joey's flabby flesh stiffened where it could. His flat buck cheeks clenched as he lifted them off the bed with effort. His mouth gaped open like a dead fish, and his eyes squeezed shut. It was over already? Reagan had only taken 2 sips of her first soda. Staring over his shoulder, the little actress rolled her eyes, but continued her moaning praise. Oh, Big Daddy, no one's ever made me feel like that before. You are a golden god. Reagan doubted Thor, the actual golden god, would appreciate the comparison. His exploits in Asgard were the stuff of legends. She was lucky she hadn't been born a human female. Men were some of the dumbest creatures she'd ever encountered. She would have counted human females as intelligent, except somehow they'd let males have power over them. Was it because of the sex? Were men's wangs truly that magical? They didn't look like anything special to Reagan. She'd likely have a better time digging up worms from the earth. At least they could regenerate when you cut off the head. Male bodies were so jiggly and hairy and smelly. She truly didn't see the draw. But it was not her lot in life to see the draw. She was here to collect. Reagan waited for the female to collect her clothes, collect her payment, and then abscond from the room. She didn't need an audience for her performance. Once the door shut behind the woman, it was showtime. Stepping over the ledge of the window, Reagan launched inside the room. She tucked and rolled over the shag carpet. When she was at the foot of the bed, she brandished her swords. It was a pointless demonstration of her prowess. The whale was snoring, his large belly rising and falling, his tiny member shriveled up, smaller than a worm. How could women stomach the touch of a male, much less their thrusting? Reagan poked the man with the blunt end of her sword. She was afraid that poking him with the pointy end would make him burst like a balloon, and she'd be left with innards to take back home. It took a couple more pokes before Joey woke up. He came to with a cough and sputter. Some of his dribble got on Reagan's armor. Great. Here for round two, sweetheart? He asked. Gross. Besides, Reagan doubted he could even mount an offense for round two. His eyes widened when he saw that there wasn't a naked woman in front of him, but a woman in full armor with a sword come to service him. "Who sent you? Whoever it is, I'll have their heads and yours, you dumb broad." In response, Reagan flipped him over and hogtied him. "You can't do this! Do you know who I am?" He screamed like a little girl when she tossed him out the window. He landed on her dragon's back and promptly peed himself. The big daddy whale kept his protest, pleas, and propositions up all the way to the veil, the rip in the fabric of the earth where the goddess tinkered on her creations. Humans once called this place the Garden of Eden, back when they were residents. By the time they got to Shepherdstown, Reagan had a raging headache and was contemplating stopping into God's Teat for a pint. She landed her dragon behind the bar and began to dismount when she realized she wasn't the only one who was looking forward to a tall glass of spirits. "Oh, yes, yes, big dragon, you're the best I've ever had." A fairy's lithe legs were wrapped around the tight backside of a male whose physique would have given the golden god a run for his money. There were no rolls on this male's body, unless you counted the muscles of his arms and thighs. "You're so big, Draco! You're gonna split me right open!" Though the reality of the fairy's words was unlikely, because a fairy was mostly sinew and fluids with no bones, the sentiment was true. Reagan caught glimpses of Draco's size as he slipped in and out of the fairy's most private of places. His whole member didn't sink inside her pink sheath. Reagan had heard of the dragon shifter Draco. Many fairies whispered his name in the town, and they each did it with a covetous sigh. Draco was the reason Reagan had wondered about the sexual act in the first place. What, she wondered, could make a female tremble with just a mention of a male's name? Well, she was seeing the reason with her own eyes. Draco swiveled his hips as he thrust. The fairy threw her head back in wild abandon. He caught her wrists in one hand and stretched them over her head, trapping her against him as he continued his wanton assault. They were screwing up against the side of the bar. He pounded into her like a hammer would a nail. With such a ruckus, Reagan was sure everyone inside God's Teat could hear them. If he was worried about an audience, Draco gave no indication. He increased his speed, pounding into the fairy with a thump, thump, thump. Soon her legs began to tremble, shaking like a leaf at the edge of a branch. Draco slipped his finger between them. Reagan could see his hand moving in a circular motion in time to his thumbs. Within seconds, the fairy threw her head back and screamed. But it wasn't a scream of pain. Not exactly. It was as though the pain was so exquisite that the fairy had to let some of the intensity out. Reagan gulped at the sight and sound of it. She felt her mouth watering. She felt heat in the space between her thighs, a heat that she didn't know could turn up there. Her mind filled with want. Her throat was dry from thirst. Her fingers clenched with need. And then Draco's gaze snapped up and locked on her. Reagan felt she should run. But she was a Valkyrie. She was a daughter of the goddess. She ran from nothing. Yet the sounds of feet hitting pavement were plain in her ears. Still thrusting, Draco's gaze flicked past her. His green eyes widened and then narrowed as though sensing prey. With difficulty, Reagan tore her gaze away from the dragon. Running away, in the dark, she saw the flab of a giant human whale. Joy was getting away, all because she had been peeping at a male waving his magical wang. Ugh, men. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 1 of The Valkyries' Claim. Be sure and tune in for Chapter 2 coming soon. And if you'd like to grab the story to have for yourself, just follow the link bit.ly Valkyries' Claim and grab your copy. Thanks so much. I'll see you next time.